this is not necessarily XP related, but I've got 3 really high capacity leaders, so I'm just going to go with it. Give us a strategy, a tip, a trick that you employ on a regular basis, leading out in your positions, that maybe you read somewhere or you've learned over the experience of, like, you mentioned, you put your 24-year-old in a different position that's not necessarily in her lane, but it really freed her up, and you obviously felt emboldened to do that from somewhere. So give us a little insight into how you all approach leadership. Think about that, just a little tip or trick, and people are like, oh, that's really good. Let's go with that. So give us something. You mentioned you really lean into the red, green, yellow zone. Maybe that's it for you. Maybe it's something else.
Yeah, I would say the most important is, of course, start your day with God.
Yeah.
I mean, everything in leadership, everything in ministry, marriage, family flows out of your abiding love relationship with Jesus. It has to start there. Everything flows out of that amazing, sweet, intimate love relationship with Jesus, because we are continuing His ministry on the earth. So we start with Him. I think the second item that I would say is super important is tell your time and energy where to go. So every hour of my day is allocated for the next 4 years. It's called advanced planning, and I create windows, green zone, yellow zone, red zone, meetings, lunch meetings, desk time where I need time to work on things that I need to work on. Now, as Jeff mentioned, our schedules do get interrupted because life happens and the machinery never stops. So I would say tell your time and energy where to go. And then a third item is lead with questions. We're confident in our leadership. We're walking in the Spirit. We just want to say, here's what we need to do. Here's what we need to go. Hey, I can help you go to the next level. Here's how we can remove the lid on your leadership, versus what's God been stirring in your heart? Zach, what do you feel like is a lid on your leadership? Jeff, what do you feel is your grace lane? Clean sheet of paper. You can do anything you want to do in our context. Where do you see adding the most value on our team? And that's leading with questions. And then the fourth would be leave room for mystery. God may surprise you with someone or something that's not on your radar.
Yeah, that's huge.
That was great. Ask the question again.
Actually, what made me think of the question was earlier when you said, I worked for a pastor and I just had to keep an open agenda that I could slide into all the time. And then you worked for a different pastor, you're like, I didn't have to do that with that guy. So, you've obviously kind of mastered the customization, philosophy of working with different guys.
Yeah, I wouldn't go as far as saying I've mastered it.
Well,
But it's I think everybody is different.
Sure.
And I think the flexibility in this seat is probably understated. It's not cookie cutter. It's not plug and play.
Yeah.
From a very, very practical level, I got to write it down because the interruptions do happen a lot that Stephen talked about, and I have great intentions, but I forget. And so my favorite app on my computer is the little Post-it note app that I've got them all over my screen, and it's not a good day until some of those are deleted. But I think I would say, if we could imagine, I'll give you a word deal that I heard from someone in a parenting conference, but I think it works for the relationship between a pastor and an executive pastor. If we could have an imaginary PVC pipe connecting your heart, Josh, with my heart, that my job is to make sure nothing junks that up, nothing clogs that up, that I'm constantly putting a pipe cleaner through it to make sure that I am watching body language, I'm hearing what is being said, but at the same time is not being said, to make his life as easy as possible. Because he has a pressure and a weight and a responsibility that honestly I do not have. And that only builds trust with him, and I don't ever want him to doubt that I've got his back. I don't want him ever to doubt that I'm not doing what I said I was going to do. I don't ever want him to have a question. I'm not sure if I can give that to Jeff or not. And so I would say my little tip would be, if you are an EP, is to make sure you got that PVC pipe crystal clear on the inside and there's no fuzz or junk clogging it up.
Yeah, those are both really good. I'm gonna come back and take notes on the video. I think there's writing down things for me is crucial. I think if you have the ability, I think having a really good administrative assistant to help guide your time and guard your time can help with that. That's not something everybody can have, but if you can work that direction, I think it's good. I think having for me, having a platform that works for me, so we use Leader as well, and that was a game changer for me and our team, just because it gave me a place to keep everything in one spot. So all of our one-on-one meeting notes, team notes, it was just in one place, because I had multiple files and all this kind of stuff going on, so that was really helpful. But I think for me, one of the like leadership lessons that I go back to time and time again, and our staff, you could ask them, they would probably tell you we talk about this too much, but it actually came out of a book on building a discipling culture by a guy named Mike Breen, and it was about how you create the right type of culture. And he went back to Jesus and said Jesus leveraged really two elements. He leveraged invitation and challenge, or relationship and challenge, and how you leverage those two things will create a certain culture. And so it gives a quadrant, and for me, I'm a visual person, so it helps me look at that and kind of say, if you are high relationship, low challenge, you got a very cozy culture. If you're low on both, it's apathetic. If you're all challenged but there's no relationship, there's no personal investment, it's discouraging. But if you can leverage both of those things really well, you create an empowering culture. And for me, having that is just a framework in my mind when I look at relationships with staff, or the staff as a whole. Where is maybe there's some apathy, where's some discouragement. So maybe somebody's going through a really hard time. Okay, how can we then pour into them relationally? So from like a leadership lesson kind of axiom type thing, for me, that's really been life changing. And what's really cool is it applies to every area of life, And so there's the little things, but then for me, it's almost a daily basis. I come back to just that idea as just a framework to see how am I leading and what am I leading to.
Yeah, that's huge. So when you walk into a room, let's say you walk into your staff, or you walk into Sunday morning congregation, people see you, there's the executive pastor, all kinds of preconceptions go through people's minds. What's the biggest misunderstanding about the executive pastor? What do
That we
people
know what's going on?
That you know what's going on?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think it probably would depend on who you're talking to.
Okay.
Are you talking about staff? Are you talking about...
Let's start with staff, yeah. And then we'll go to the congregation, because I think you're right, there's probably two different answers there.
It could depend on what interactions you've had with them during the week. Did you have to coach them up on something?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
It could be that you celebrated a win and things are great, but I've learned, because of coaching and a pastor that loved me enough to tell me the truth, that I have to be careful about body language. He said, you're a processor, and so I throw an idea out, and you're already thinking 3 steps down the road, and the staff's feeding off you, and they're reading it as you're against the idea. And I know you're not. You're just thinking about what's got to happen to make it come alive, but you're pouring water on my fire.
Yeah.
And how would I have known that if he hadn't told me? I didn't like hearing it,
right.
But I was embarrassed. But I have to be conscious of that. And so sometimes I'll walk into a room and it's like it's a fake. But I learned people feed off the leader.
Sure.
So your body language matters.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely affirm what Jeff said. I think, I really think it does depend on the context. When we're talking about pastors who may want an executive pastor, a pastor can be clear about what he wants in an executive pastor. Then you have to define what an executive pastor is to your staff and to the congregation.
Yeah, it's true.
So if a congregation in that context understands the role of an executive pastor for that context, there's very little misunderstanding. It's whenever there's not clarity about the role. If you're grooving a new path and you've never had an executive pastor and all of a sudden we're introducing so-and-so as our new executive pastor, as soon as you use the word executive, people in their minds are creating all these images of what their understanding of an executive is. Mm-hmm. Some are going to be positive, some are going to be negative. So I think defining what executive pastor is, you have to interpret that to the congregation. And then as the congregation experiences the executive pastor, do they experience warmth like a shepherd or coolness like an engineer?
Yeah.
So we have to be process engineers with a shepherd's heart, a tenderness, a compassion. So that's where the warmth comes in. And, as Jeff said a moment ago, we can be in process mode. Zach's unveiling this amazing vision. And when you make a decision, it's a disruptive. It's a disruptor. When you say, hey, I think we're going to do this. An executive pastor is thinking about the how to pay for it, how to align staff resources, how to market it, how to process this throughout the church family so we have buy-in. So, the pastor's about the what, we're about how to fulfill the what. We have to learn how to have that warmth, that compassion. If not, we will be misunderstood as, well, it's a no, and we haven't even really talked to it yet. What do you think about that, Zach? Have you experienced that in your
that's true.
journey?
I laugh at that because, Sunday mornings, there's like two extremes for Sunday morning. There are the people that are like, what do you do?
Sure.
Because I don't have, direct every Sunday, like, I fill in and preach if Brian's out, but I'm not most Sundays leading a group or doing that. I'm more, just overseeing and helping out wherever. So I may stepping into a door or, whatever. So there's the constant, you holding up the wall today? What are you doing? And the constant, everything okay? Because I'm in that mode of like, I'm looking around and I'm analyzing what's happening. And so that warmth of that body language is just really good reminders. I started laughing when you said that because that's kind of the thing. Like, you look stressed. I'm like, oh, I'm really not. I'm just
This
just
is
thinking.
my normal face.
I'm taking it all in. Trying to figure out why why that's like that, or those kind of things, and kind of making notes. So, I think for me, one of the things that's been an adjustment is coming out of more of an age-graded or like specific ministry area. I had a people. So when I was, in student ministry,
That's a good thing.
I had a people. So I had a group, that kind of stuff. And then, moving into, still running kind of adult ministry, like I had my leaders that I were talking to and that kind of stuff. I've kind of been going through this season of who are my people. So my people are the staff and, key volunteers, but it's just different on Sunday morning, being around and interfacing with people, being warm, but not having kind
Much
of that.
more of a generalist.
It's more of a generalist. Yeah. And so, there's a couple Sundays I was just kind of sitting there and I'm like, who are my people? And then it's like, well, everybody, but it's a different role because it is kind of behind the scenes, at least in our context.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, that reminds me too. There is one thing I've noticed if I walk into like our, let's just say our kids area, protect the innocent, and I've noticed that volunteers will go find the person in charge, and Jeff's here. And like, no, I didn't.
I'm just saying
I didn't mean anything. And it's the assumption that something's wrong, or they wanted them to know you're being observed. And it's funny because that was not the intent at all. And I've had to learn the art of on Sunday. That's the get it done day, and we can handle the why and the let's not let this happen again, and hey, let's shore this up on Monday through Thursday. But when staff members receive those questions on Sunday, sometimes it's just too much. It's overwhelming to them. And so I've learned the art of making my list and then having the conversation later.
Yeah, that's really good.